and most recently, if you go even 1 inch outside the approved narrative, you are kicked out of the cult and called a racist and an anti-vaxxer like that. Okay, so here I just want to show you this. I saw this was tweeted out by Brittlestar. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but or whatever this guy is. But I'm going to tell you who he is in a second. But watch this. This is going to be surprising to you, I think.
I've just had my third shot. A booster, they call it. How many more are they going to make us get? Don't know, don't care. Because I, like you probably, understand there is a global pandemic, and people much, much smarter than you and me have decided this is the best plan of action to avoid lots more people dying or cluttering up hospital hallways. You and I, we're doing our part by getting one more little prick and not being one. I've just...
Okay, so that is a scientific argument. But can we play it again and I'll stop?
I've just had my third shot. A booster, they call it. How many more are they going to make us get? Don't know, don't care.
Wow, don't know. You don't get much more scientific than that, do you? Don't know, don't care. I think that should be the new Hippocratic Oath. Don't know, don't care. The only argument more scientific than don't know, don't care is God said it, I believe it, and that settles it. And that's as true as when Einstein first tweeted it. Am I right? Come on. So my thing is, this is the ultimate in, if you think for yourself, you're a prick. If you push back, if you question authority, you're a prick. This is, don't be angry at your government for their horrible COVID policies and for leaving you without health care during a pandemic, but be angry at your neighbor. Be angry at a grocery store clerk, a nurse's aide, or a teacher, or a bus driver. That's who this guy is calling a prick. Not the president who's denying us health care, student debt relief, or relief while they lock us down. Not the government, not big pharma who's keeping us poor. Not nobody. No, who's the prick is your neighbor. And you know what? You know why he's saying that? Because this guy's a corporate tool. He's being paid by corporations to say things like this. That's why. This doesn't come from his heart. Anyway, Max, would you like to say something to our good friend?
Well, we need to trust the science. And that's why, because the science is people smarter than us. And as someone who is not the science, I only trust this unfunny Canadian comedian and Big Bird. Because this unfunny Canadian comedians used to be funny, by the way, like John Candy.
Very funny.
I don't know what happened. I think all comedians, U.S. late night comedians, they're doing the same thing as this guy. And we've seen Jimmy Kimmel literally sponsored by Moderna while calling for the unvaccinated to be denied health care, to be denied emergency health care in the name of triage. So these people are literal court jesters. And they're being incentivized to do it. And they and Big Bird are pushing a public policy and telling us while scientific dissenters and not just scientific dissenters, the ones we talked about, Jimmy, on our last stream from the Great Barrington Declaration, but people inside some of the regulatory bodies are being shunted aside and demonized through smear campaigns. So when we are asked to trust smart people, obviously we're being asked to turn off our critical faculties and to not ask what the hell just happened for the last 2 years and why we are in this situation where the smarter people, the people who were smarter than us, have lied to us at every step of the way, starting with telling us that we would be able to vaccinate our way out of this pandemic. And they told us that the vaccines would prevent transmission, that they were non-sterilizing. Then they told us that wasn't true. And now they're telling us, those who went out and did their part and got fully vaccinated, that they're no longer vaccinated. That's what Anthony Fauci has openly said now, that he's considering changing the definition of what it means to be fully vaccinated, as other countries are doing. former FDA officials have come out in the Washington Post. One is the former deputy director of the FDA's Office of Vaccine Research and Review, and the other is the former acting chief scientist at the FDA. And they have slammed the Biden administration for not consulting outside experts on their vaccine policy and ignoring even FDA officials on the question of authorizing boosters specifically for 16 and 17-year-olds. And what they're saying directly in this op-ed in the Washington Post, not exactly a bastion of critical thinking on COVID. It's a place where democracy usually goes to die in dumbness, owned by the richest man in America, is that, first of all, the FDA authorized these booster shots for 16 and 17-year-olds without asking its own vaccine expert panel for advice. And quoting Helen Branswell of Stat News, which is a scientific journal, this approach sidesteps what would likely have been lengthy discussions about myocarditis, this heart inflammation condition that particularly affects young boys, adolescent boys. So basically, the people smarter than us that we're being asked to trust are actually ignoring people smarter than them who are also more concerned not only about the science but public health than they are, and they're openly, and this is being openly put in front of us, and we're being asked to trust a court jester. That goes against everything that we were told democracy was supposed to be about, but also, being a good, proper leftist was about. Because wasn't it Ralph Nader in the 1970s who started all of these consumer protection, consumer defense campaigns? We are the consumers. We are participating basically in a live clinical trial for free, and we're not being given the science. And now we're basically being bullied into the next phase, which we were not warned about by comedians who are telling us if we don't trust those smarter people, we're a prick. We are assholes. We're just bad people for even asking questions. So turn off your brain. Don't ask questions. Accept the lockdown if you have to. Don't talk to your neighbors. Only communicate on easily surveilled, big tech social platforms, and trust the science.
This is who this guy is, by the way. So if you want to know, he's a Canadian, as you said, but he's not. He's a Canadian comedian, but he doesn't perform in front of live audiences, which is to me. Anyway, here's his LinkedIn, right? So I went and I found his LinkedIn, and this is who he is. Hundreds of thousands of people watch Brittlestar's videos every week. His comedic and family-friendly videos have been seen more than 450 million times on various platforms. His recent Kentucky Fried Chicken video campaign was the most popular branded video content in the world in the summer of 2017. With a global fan base and invitation to the White House, speaking engagements all over North America, starring in the DreamWorks TV show Kid vs. Parent with his youngest son, collaborations with celebrities like the Property Brothers, and meet and greets with Playlist Live, Brittlestar is living the social media celebrity dream. Not bad for a dad from the suburbs. Brittlestar, or Stuart Reynolds, as his mom calls him when he's in trouble, that's some of his comedy, is the farthest of the two teen boys, Owen and Gregor, both well-known creators online. These three guys, along with Brittlestar's wife, Shannon, co-star of their successful morning show Thing Live, stream on Facebook, have created viral videos for a variety of brands and organizations such as Disney, ESPN, Subway, CBC, Walmart, and others. So I wonder who's paying him to do this. I don't think you have to think too hard. So was that surprising to you at all, Max? That's who he turned out to be, a guy who's just making comedy content for sponsors like that? Go ahead.
You mean he's not George Carlin? I mean, I just can't believe it. I mean, you mean that the comedians who are actually challenging the establishment in a meaningful way aren't getting massive promotional deals. We're not seeing them in PSAs, and you know, this is what they are. And have you ever seen? I forget which special it's from, but George Carlin actually did what would be a pretty devastating takedown of the Branch Covidian cult, of just slamming germophobia and the obsession with
Yes.
germs and keeping people apart.
Yes.
I wish we had teed that up beforehand, but I really think there was a different culture in comedy that's been really sapped by the corporatization of comedy. And honestly, like I don't know what comedians are dealing with, but the musicians, I actually probably am around more comedians these days than I used to be, thanks to you. But the musicians I talked to they've taken it, like the ones who perform live, they took a serious hit under lockdown and with all the restrictions and all the fears, and music is coming back, but many of them feel like there's an attack on live music, and I wonder if comedians feel the same. This what this guy is doing is basically arguing for endless Zoom comedy and just turning off our critical faculties, which is the essence of comedy, is just like looking at the establishment with total contempt.
It's the essence of comedy is to be an anti-establishment person, to poke holes in the authoritarians or the authority. That's the whole thing. So when you're using comedy to promote the status quo, I don't know that's not comedy. I don't know what that is. I think that's called propaganda. Because comedy actually pushes back against. It certainly doesn't shame critical thinking. Stop thinking for yourself. What are you going to do? Your own research? You know who does their own research? Dummies. That's who does their own research. I mean, that's what they're saying. I literally heard comedians go on stage, Max. Can you keep Max there? I literally hear comedians go on stage at comedy clubs in Los Angeles and say things like, "Oh, you're going to do your own research? Oh, you're a genius." What? So could you be any more anti-intellectual while pretending you're not? Like your ex, that's the irony of that. So go ahead.
Well, it's just like journalism, the corporate media mentality of being stenographers for power, because that's what you have to do in order to rise to the top of the festering pond scum of the Beltway press corps. It filters down to all of the younger, ambitious journalists, and they adopt that kind of sensibility. The same thing happens in comedy. I mean, if you are an anti-establishment comedian in a genuine way, and unless, yeah, in a genuine way, you're going to have to find a way of carving out your own niche.
Yes.
Without any kind of institutional or corporate support. That's just a reality.
Look what they did to Jon Stewart when he went on Stephen Colbert's show and tried to do a comedy bit about the Wuhan virus originating from the Wuhan virus lab, because it was called the Wuhan. You remember that? And Stephen Colbert tried to cut the knees out from underneath him at every turn, to the point where Jon Stewart had to get up off the couch and walk to the camera and finish his comedy bit, because Stephen Colbert was trying to kneecap it for his corporate donors and his audience. Do you remember that?
Well, I just remember when Stephen Colbert used to be mildly subversive.
Yeah.
Because he was impersonating the person in a satirical way that he would later become and embody. Like, he is the embodiment of the satirical corporate media enforcer that he used to play.
He's not pushing back against corporate narratives. That's for goddamn sure. He is the mouthpiece for it. None of them are. You're right. I mean, and Jimmy Kimmel, who very nice, he put me on his show. Jimmy Kimmel, who is literally, that was 15 years ago. He has a contract with Moderna, and then he comes out and starts. I mean, if I got on stage, and somebody had given me a check for $30,000 to tout a drug, would you believe me? Would you believe me?
It literally said at the bottom of the screen, sponsored by Moderna.
If I came on stage and I was telling people to take a new experimental drug that's going to cure your cancer, and it's from this company that just gave me $50,000, would you believe me? Because that's what they give Rachel Maddow every day. They give her like around $50,000 a day.
But that speaks to another issue here, which is that even if you want to encourage people to get booster shots, and I don't think anyone would really you wouldn't be seeing mass resistance around these issues if the encouragement didn't come with a threat to lock you down, take away your job, quarantine you, and demonize you. But here you have this comedian calling you a prick if you don't do what you're told. Do you think that's going to convince the people who did their own research, which is the greatest sin?
No.
Who actually thought independently and decided,
no,
made a health decision for themselves? Will that convince them? No, it's going to make them double down. And it's the same with Biden, dark winter Biden, warning that the unvaccinated will die and suffer.
So,
what the hell just happened here?
What? What's the matter?
Sorry, I just had a ad pop up on my computer and play it.
Oh, okay.
But yeah. I mean, dark winter Biden, he's going to tell the unvaccinated that they will die this winter. How are they going to react to that? You think that's no? It's all about polarizing people. It's all about consolidating two countries, driving people insane with resentment, and their anger will be righteous anger. It will drive and deepen the resistance to these kinds of policies with this kind of messaging. And sometimes I wonder if that's the point. The point isn't to.
That is the point.
Yeah, that's the point.
So when you do a video like that video is not aimed at people who are unvaccinated. That video is aimed, that is catnip for people who hate people who are unvaccinated and are erroneously blaming them for their lot in life right now. Blaming them for a pandemic that's never going away. I mean, the COVID virus is never going away. It's going to become endemic, meaning it's going to be here forever, and everyone is likely to catch it. So when he does that video, that's not actually trying to get people to take the vaccine. That's making people seem righteously indignant and hating people who aren't getting it, which is why he calls them pricks at the end. If you're trying to reach people and get them to do something, I think calling them pricks is the opposite of the power of coercion. That's you're doing, you got it backwards, but exactly what you said, Max. This isn't about getting those people to do that. This is about fomenting a cultural divide. And that's what that guy is doing. And, if the idea is that people smarter than me told me to do something, so now I'm supposed to do it, or I'm a prick. Hey, Brad, let's have an IQ test. And if my IQ test is higher than yours, then you have to do everything I say for a day. How about that? Should we do that? You want to do that thing? I know people in college who are a lot smarter than me who actually died in a frat from butt chugging. So there's a lot of people smart. So would you go butt chug? Because guys smarter than you died butt chugging. So why would you not butt chug?
The former president, I think, did butt chuggers. George W. Bush, he was like a butt chug guy.
And he was the president, so he had to be smarter.
The right-wingers all trusted him on the war on terror. And now it's like the left is supposed to trust Biden on COVID. It's the same dynamic, or similar dynamic. But yeah, I mean, I went to an Ivy League school and met some of the dumbest people I've ever met in my life. I mean, it was probably they were the dumbest people, many of my classmates. And that's where I learned about butt chuggers. I never did a butt chugger, but I would see these frat boys who were going on to be like the captains of industry,
yes,
the future leaders of our country, playing beer pong, and then just getting so drunk they were like carted off in ambulances on the first or second night of each year when they got back. And you'd have like a soundtrack of Rage Against the Machine. You better do what they told you. Like they'd be playing that while they were doing what they told you, and like just drinking themselves into oblivion. Literally, like 1 or 2 students would die on the first or second night every year, and several more would have their stomachs pumped. And like these are the smart. I mean, I'm not saying that every public health expert is a frat boy doing butt chuggers. I'm just saying we are living in a country run by educated fools from uneducated schools, as Curtis Mayfield put it. And anyone with any independent thinking capacity right now is questioning what the hell is going on and what they're being coerced into doing. And those who are deferential to authority, a lot of them have advanced degrees and they're like the smart pinheads, but everybody else knows they're being had.
So Brad Palumbo says this is the worst possible way to convince people to get a booster. The smart experts say so, so just shut up and do it. No questions. You mean the same experts that have literally been wrong about everything this entire time? Yes, those are the experts. But this person here says, oh, please state one thing the experts have been wrong about. How about that? Well, Fauci first said that nobody should be wearing masks. That's one thing. Then he said everybody should be wearing 2 masks. That's another thing. Then he said we need to get 50% of people vaccinated to reach herd immunity. And then he said, I was lying about that. I was lying. 60%. Then he said 75%. Then he said 90%. You want me to keep going? I can keep going. They lied to you about early treatments. I'm not allowed to say that. I'm not allowed to tell you what that is, but they did. They lied. You go to my Rumble video with RFK Jr., I'll tell you what it is. They lied to you about, because you can't, if there was a treatment, that would be devastating for Big Pharma right now. If there was a cheap and inexpensive and effective treatment, that would be devastating for Big Pharma right now. And because you couldn't get an emergency authorization. So they've been not only wrong, but they've been intentionally lying. They lied about funding gain of function. Fauci lied to Congress twice about funding gain of function research at the Wuhan Institute. He lied about it. So that's 3 things right there off the top of my head. Huge things. That not only were
they lie about the worst lie is about natural immunity. I mean, they just upend everything we know about public health. Stuff you learn in like 7th grade biology, 5th grade biology. Stuff you just learn that's common sense. If you get infected, you have stronger immunity than naive vaccination. You're not allowed to. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on YouTube.
I don't think you're.
I don't think straight up lied about that. They're just massive peer-reviewed study after study showing that it's stronger.
I have to shame you, Max. How dare you quote those studies? Because as we all know, vaccines give you much better immunity than natural immunity. That's what I learned in school. I don't know what you're talking about. So I have to, or else that's the truth that I have to learn, or I'll lose my show. So I don't know what Ivy League school you went to. You know. All right.
It's just it's anti-vax to propose things that could supplement vaccination.
That's what's if you don't even mention, they don't even mention vitamin D ever. They never mention vitamin D, and that right there should be a tip off. And why do they have to tell you certain drugs, lie to you and say they're horse dewormer drugs when they're actually Nobel Prize winning human drugs? Why would they lie to you about that? Well, that's the question you need to ask yourself. Why would they lie about that? Why wouldn't they just say it doesn't work? Why would they have to lie?
Well, it's kind of like how throughout Russiagate we were told that the intelligence community has a high confidence assessment.
Yes.
And this term, the intelligence community, needed to be interrogated because the CIA is neither communal nor intelligent. And by calling themselves the intelligence community, you think of this gathering of like Mensa geniuses who go into the woods to consult an oracle before making any decision, who have this omniscient power, when in reality, they're just the surveillance and propaganda community, but no one wants to call them that. It's like how the Defense Department used to be called the War Department. So we're just basically being told to trust the biomedical version of the intelligence community all over again, 2 years in, when many people have made better decisions for themselves going against the grain.
You know, I have to apologize to that Canadian comedian. Maybe that is the best way to reach people to get a booster. I mean, obviously, I haven't done the years of ad research that he and his people have done. If I did, I would know that the best way to reach people to get a booster is to start paying a weak-chinned Canadian smug hack to call people pricks. That is the best way.
I resent that comment about weak chins.
Yeah, no problem. I want to give people some information which I don't know if I'm allowed to say anymore, but I'm going to try. So this is vaccinated or not, everyone is likely to get COVID-19 at some point. Many experts say there's this idea we're going to live our lives without ever getting it. It's a fantasy, and it's a dangerous one. This is from the Orange County Register. And it says, sit down, brace yourself. Sooner or later, we're all going to get COVID-19, experts say, even if we're fully vaccinated. The idea that we're going to live our life, that's a danger. I just read that one. And a lot of people just don't understand that. We're all going to get it. That's what they're saying in the Orange County Register. And that's Dr. Bruce Patterson. And he counts himself among the 90% of infectious disease and virology experts who believe COVID will become endemic, meaning it will hang around indefinitely like the flu. So COVID is here to stay. We're not going to eradicate COVID 10 years from now. They're going to still be COVID, Dr. Neumer said. So I think a lot of the anger that people have, like that comedian is trying to pander to, is that people have been misinformed that if just enough people get vaccinated, we can get out of all this and we could go back to our normal lives. And it's those people who are keeping us from it. Well, this says that contradicts that. And who else contradicts that? The WHO. COVID-19 won't be eradicated. Global health experts expect COVID-19 to circulate and mutate in a similar way to the flu. So if you feel like you need protection from COVID, you should get a vaccine. Why doesn't that comedian get a vaccine? Why is he calling someone else a prick who doesn't want that, who doesn't want to get a booster? If it protects you, go fucking get it. It's never going away. So why do you care if someone else gets vaccinated or not? What does that have to do with you? So these are the questions no one's asking in mainstream news media. No one's even presenting these facts in mainstream news media. They're just scaring you about the Omicron virus, which we're going to talk to you about later. Seems way milder. It seems like this is anyway. So I just want to show you this. I comply because I want it to end. It's because you comply that it will never end. I wonder how long we have to go until we reach herd intelligence. Oh, here's one. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, I must be a registered voter. And this is pretty funny. I saw this. The 3rd dose increases immunity, so after the 4th dose, you are protected. Once 90% of the population has received its 5th dose, the restrictions can be relaxed as the 6th dose stops the virus from spreading. I am calm and believe that the 7th dose will solve our problems, and we have no reason to fear the 8th dose. The clinical phase of the 9th dose confirms that the antibodies remain stable after the 10th dose. The 11th dose guarantees that no new mutations will develop, so there's no longer any reason to criticize the idea of a 12th dose. So that's obviously comedy. Again, I have to keep saying all this stuff so I don't get my channel taken down. But I think that's funny. Everybody come see our live stand-up shows. We're coming to Raleigh, North Carolina.